So after multiple attempts at trying to figure out what it was, I think I am on to the answer. And I think it might be this guy here. This is the center clutch plate. There's a center one, and then there's a inner and an outer that have a conical shape to the inside here. But this is the center one. It's just a flat piece. Well, it's supposed to be flat. I'm going to try to do this on here to see if I can show you how this looks, but it's kind of hard to see, but that is flat against my ruler. You'll see the ends are flat, but you can see gap through the center. And if I turn it around and put it against the straight edge, you can see there's a pretty significant gap at the top, and it's touching in the center. So it's warped, kind of like a saucepan. So that's junk. Talking to some people on the Royal Enfield forums, this apparently is not terribly unusual. So that's junk. The good news is a replacement is only about $5. So we'll get that coming and stick it in and see if that solves the problem. Okay, so here is the new clutch plate from Hitchcock's, and I'll put this together over the other one and show you that when these are put together tightly side by side, you can see that there's a gap. You can actually see the dish on that old one if you look at it carefully. But yeah, see, that's definitely warped, because it should lay flush against that, but it does not. Yeah, so hopefully we found our problem. We'll put it in and find out. A note here when you take the alternator apart. When you replace the alternator onto the rotor, there's an air gap that you have to maintain between this part and this part as this spins inside of that. And this gap in here needs to be equidistant the whole way around. If you're trying to do that with feeler gauges, you're going to have a really bad time, because being that that rotor is magnetized, it keeps pulling the alternator different directions. Every time you try to tap it one way, it wants to drag it another, and you can spend an hour trying to get that thing right. I know from experience. However, there is a cheater solution. The air gap's supposed to be between 0.010 and 0.025, I believe. So I have a couple of special Royal Enfield alternator air gap tools here. That's a nod to a friend of mine who comes up with all kinds of funny solutions to things, so I named it after him. But this one is measured at 0.024, and it is a cutout of a vinegar jar or bottle, like that one right there. That, unfortunately, which it works on my 5-speed perfectly, was too thick for this bike, so we had to find another solution. So I rummaged through the kitchen cabinets and I found the Kit Kat box, and that is 0.010, give or take. And so with this thinner material, I was able to use that as my air gap. Just wrap that around the rotor, slide the alternator on over top, and it should have a equal gap the entire way around. Once you put it on, the clutch of course would have to be in place, but give it a couple of kicks and make sure that you don't hear any contact anywhere, and if not, you're good to go. Well, I noticed something unusual when I was pulling the clutch earlier, and I want to share this with you now that I've set up my gauge here. I'm going to pull the clutch. So we're about 48 on the scale there. Doesn't go back to 0, don't worry about that. We're just looking at the range of motion on the clutch plate. Alright, now I'm going to relocate to the other side. Alright, we haven't moved the clutch itself, just moved the gauge to the opposite side. So the travel is only half as much. Now I'm going to rotate this and see if it changes. Alright, so I've moved it 180 degrees. Oops. And we'll try the other side. And here we go. Now it's even. That's weird. I rotated it again a couple more times and set it up again. And now that's all we're getting on this side. And if you look here, you watch, it's pretty apparent that it's only opening on the one side. So what the heck is causing that? Alright, back again. Another day, another theory. So what I did was I marked where the clutch wasn't releasing, on which side it was prevalent on, and it's marked here, of course, with the tape. And what I did was I took everything internal on the clutch off, rotated it 180 degrees, and reinstalled it. And then checked to see where the low spot was in the release. And it didn't move. So from that, I know that the clutch components themselves that sit in the basket are not the problem. The problem lies somewhere in this basket or the piece inside that it pivots with. So we're going to take that apart today. One of the thoughts, and I kind of dismissed it earlier because I thought I'd looked at it pretty well, but one of the thoughts was that perhaps some of these slots or the grooves inside that the discs slide on might have rough edges on them, which they can get over time from the impacts of changing gear. So I looked at them. I even filed some of them down, but with it on the bike, which is hard to do. And I don't think that that's what the problem is, but it would make sense that that's what it would be, that it's only doing it in one area. So I'm going to pull all this off, which means I got to take the alternator off again and get that out on the bench, have a look at it, see what we've got, and go from there. So stick around. So here's this assembly apart. This goes in this from the back side, and it's held in by a snap ring, which goes in a groove around here. So what we're looking at is these guys here. You can see they're kind of hammered looking. That's not unusual after some use on one of these, but if those are too nasty for the plates to slide on, they're going to get hung up. So I'm going to go through and dress all those up and see if that maybe fixes the problem. This thing has little ball bearings in it. Just have to be careful not to knock those loose. Certainly don't want to do that. Now these slots here can also get a little boogered up, but they don't seem to get as much damage on them as these other splines here. So we're going to go through and file them and polish them and make them all purty and see if maybe that's what the problem is. Here's a little visual aid to help you understand maybe what's going on or what we think might be going on. So you can see how these plates go on here, fit in here, and then they have to slide up and down in these grooves. But if they catch, then they won't release. And I'm getting some resistance over in this area. So it's not smooth, so that might be it. Fingers crossed. Alright, we filed all these edges down. See if I can get you a good clean shot of that. Smooth over the edge. So, see if that makes the magic happen. I took the Dremel to this guy a little bit to get some of these burrs and raised edges that were on the inside here, and then followed up with a file. These are going to be impacted from the inside. So any of those high spots, ground those off a little bit. That one there might need a little bit more work. But I don't think it's hanging up on this part, but we're here, might as well do it. Okay, so none of that worked. Now let me show you something that I've deduced now. There's a high spot in whatever is rotational. So I put this on the basket, which does not turn, but the inside does. Watch the needle. So what that means is the rotational part is pushing the basket outward. So either the basket's bent, but I think it's more likely that something is amiss here with this rotational piece. So either that's bad or the shaft is bent, which seems really unlikely. So we'll dig further. I marked the whereabouts of the high spot. In other words, the spot that pushes towards the clutch. And feast your eyes on here. Watch this gap. Let's get this together where I want it. It's maybe not easy to see because of the focusing, but there's a definite wobble. And the high spot, when I stop, it's low, high, low, high, low, right there. So this is where it's lowest from this angle, but it's pushing towards the clutch, which is likely keeping it from releasing fully, as the plates are dragging on that spot. So we might need one of these big expensive gear pieces. That's not good. One final test. I wanted to make sure that this piece was not the problem and that the transmission shaft wasn't wobbling either. So without the gear on it, now this needle's going to move a little bit because the thing's not bolted on. So that's some full rotation. The reason the needle moved is because the bike moves on the center stand. But that little bit of movement is nothing. So that piece we can deduce is straight, and the problem is going to be that thing. Well, in the midst of fighting with the clutch problem and getting frustrated, I decided to do something that would show some results. This was the ignition distributor cover, which looked fine, but is actually broken. And it's been broken for some time because it's been taped. So, junk. There's a couple of options. Some are plastic, some are rubber. Instead, I went with this, which is what's on my bike. This is a cast alloy piece. And this was a closeout piece from Hitchcock's. It's one of their substandard quality parts that they put up for cheap, made in India. And the Royal Enfield logo there is not done very well. It looks like when they polished this part, they kind of ruined the lettering, but it came unpainted, and I painted the lettering in there to try to dress it up a little bit. So it's a good solid piece. It's not going to crack. So that solves one problem successfully. Well, I've reached my threshold of pain for the day with this thing. I've tried moving the springs around multiple times, a lot of suggestions on trying that. That didn't do anything. And I'm kind of stuck now. I'm not wanting to buy this $115 part if I'm not completely convinced it's going to solve the problem. So I'm going to throw this video up and see if anybody's got other suggestions they want to give. If you do, go ahead and leave them in the comments. Or if you're watching this on one of the Enfield message boards, give me an idea if you think you have something, because I'm kind of stumped at this point. So that's where we're going to end this one, and hopefully in the next one maybe we'll actually have accomplished something. So thanks for watching. Subscribe if you haven't to find out what the answer eventually is, because I will beat this thing. And thanks for watching, and we'll see you again soon.